When you think of cayenne pepper, you probably just think of, well, a kitchen spice, right? Something to add a little heat. But what if I told you that behind that simple burn is one of the most fascinating and frankly paradoxical stories in modern medicine?
What if that fire wasn't just fire? What if it was a key that could unlock some seriously powerful effects in our bodies? Things like fighting heart disease, cranking up your metabolism, even protecting your brain. But here's the twist. What if that exact same key could also unlock something, well, something a lot more dangerous? Yeah, let's get into it.
So the whole story, everything we're about to talk about, comes down to one single molecule, capsaicin. This is the stuff that makes peppers hot. Simple, right? But in nature, it's basically a chemical weapon for the plant. It's designed to say, hey, don't eat me, to mammals. But when we eat it, something totally different, something kind of extraordinary happens.
And here's how it works. It turns out, capsaicin is the perfect key for a very specific lock in our bodies called the TRPV1 receptor. You can just think of it as a secret switch buried inside our nerve cells. It's our body's own built-in alarm system for intense heat and pain. And when capsaicin comes along and flips that switch, whoa, it kicks off this massive chain reaction with some truly incredible consequences.
All right, so here's the plan for this explainer. We're going to break down the science of the spice, look at the amazing upside, but then we've got to talk about the dangerous downside. We'll get into this wild cancer paradox, and then we'll see how science is trying to tame this fire for good.
Okay, first up, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this all actually work on a molecular level? I mean, how can one tiny little molecule create such a huge body-wide effect?
It's actually a pretty cool four-step process. So first, capsaicin latches onto that TRPV1 receptor. That forces the receptor's channel to just fly open, and a flood of calcium ions rushes into the nerve cell. Now, your brain sees this sudden calcium flood and goes, whoa, emergency, intense heat, pain, even though you're not actually being burned. But, and this is the most important part, if you keep exposing the nerve, it just gets completely overwhelmed. It uses up all its pain signaling chemicals and basically goes numb. It just can't send pain signals anymore. So it first causes pain, and then it blocks it. And that dual action, that's the key to, well, to everything else.
So now that we know how it works, let's look at what it can do. This is where that simple mechanism turns into one of the wildest medical stories out there, hiding right in your kitchen cabinet. This stuff is a potential medical powerhouse.
Okay, check this out. When you look at big population studies, the effect is just huge. This data comes from the US NHS study. They tracked over 16,000 adults, and the results were pretty staggering. The mortality rate from any cause for people who ate chili peppers regularly was 21.6%. For those who didn't, 33.6%. I mean, that is a massive, massive difference.
And it's not just overall mortality. The heart protective effects are just as impressive. There was this huge study in China, the Kadoorie Biobank. They followed almost 500,000 people, and they found that eating spicy food every day was linked to a 14% lower risk of dying from heart disease. It seems like capsaicin helps our blood vessels work better, cools down inflammation, and even helps lower blood pressure.
But this next one, this might be the most shocking part. It's about blood clots. So in an animal study, they looked at fatal pulmonary thromboembolism. That's a deadly clot that goes to your lungs. And get this, capsaicin was incredibly protective. It literally prevented death. But here's the kicker. In the very same experiment, they tried aspirin at a dose 8 times higher, and it did nothing. Zero protection. The takeaway here is that capsaicin stops platelets from clumping together in a really, really powerful way.
Oh, and it doesn't stop there, not even close. Capsaicin is also what we call a thermogenic agent. Basically, it makes your body burn more calories as heat, which can boost your resting metabolism by about 3 to 4%. It also dials down ghrelin, the hunger hormone, which helps you control your appetite. And for your brain, it's a serious protector. It increases blood flow to the brain, which helps guard against stroke, and it fights the kind of inflammation that's linked to things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Okay, so far it sounds like a miracle drug, right? But we have to hit the brakes here for a second. We've got to remember what this stuff is at its core. It's a plant toxin. It's a defense chemical. And when you start using doses that are way beyond what you'd find in your food, you run headfirst into its dangerous side. The first and most obvious problem is just brutal gut issues. You know that pleasant warmth you feel? Well, in high doses, that warmth becomes a violent irritant. We're talking cramping, nausea, you name it. And it should go without saying, but for anyone with something like an ulcer or IBS,
High-dose capsaicin is an absolute no-go.
But what's even more serious are the drug interactions. This is critical. So take ACE inhibitors, a really common blood pressure medicine. They're known for sometimes causing this annoying dry cough. That's because they cause a buildup of a chemical called substance P. Well, guess what? Capsaicin also triggers the release of substance P. You put them together, and you can get these totally uncontrollable coughing fits. And remember how it's great at stopping blood clots? Well, if you combine it with a blood thinner like warfarin, you're massively increasing your risk of severe, even life-threatening bleeding.
And all of this leads us to the most complicated and, frankly, the most important part of this whole story, the cancer paradox. This is where capsaicin becomes a true Jekyll and Hyde.
So, on one side you have capsaicin, the hero. In the lab, it's an amazing tumor suppressor. It can literally tell cancer cells to self-destruct, a process called apoptosis. It can even make chemo drugs work better. But, on the other side, you have capsaicin, the villain. In high systemic doses, it can do the exact opposite. It can fuel the kind of chronic inflammation that leads to cancer in the first place. And it's even been shown to speed up the growth and spread of some tumors. So yeah, it can both kill cancer and help it spread. It's a total paradox.
And look, this isn't just a what-if scenario. The scientific community is really clear on this. The bottom line is, using high-dose capsaicin systemically, meaning throughout the whole body, in people with cancer is considered highly unsafe, period. The risk of actually making the cancer worse is just way too high.
So what do we do? How do we solve this puzzle? How do we get all those amazing benefits without the terrible risks? Well, the answer isn't about changing capsaicin itself, it's about changing how we use it. It all comes down to dosage, delivery, and a little bit of futuristic medicine.
This chart really puts it all into perspective. The amount you're sprinkling on your food, that's maybe 1/10 of a milligram. It tastes good, but it's not doing much for you systemically. The clinical studies seeing all those good things, they're using anywhere from about 1 to 12 milligrams. And those scary pro-cancer effects, those are seen at crazy high toxic doses. So the main takeaway here is crystal clear. You can not just eat a bunch of peppers to get these benefits. It's all about the right dose and the right purity.
And this is where the real high-tech science comes into play. The future is all about taming this fire. So step 1 is encapsulation. Basically, you wrap the capsaicin up in things like nanoparticles so it doesn't burn you. Step 2 is targeted release. You design these tiny packages to completely bypass the stomach so they don't cause any irritation, and they only open up and release the capsaicin way down in the lower intestine. And the result? You can achieve those powerful therapeutic levels in the blood safely, unlocking all that amazing potential without any of the nasty side effects.
So there you have it, from a simple kitchen spice to this incredibly complex pharmaceutical puzzle. Capsaicin really shows us that some of nature's most powerful tools are a true double-edged sword. It makes you wonder, right? The next great medicine could literally be sitting in your kitchen right now. The big question isn't what it can do, it's how do we figure out how to unlock all that power safely.